mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 6, Episode 5 of AMC's Better Call Saul, entitled Black and Blue. Episode title's pretty obvious here. The black and blue refers to the bruises that Jimmy gets in his fight with Howard, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I want to start with Lalo, because Lalo looms large over this episode. You know, everyone's kind of tweaking out over what Lalo is up to, where he might be. He could come around the corner anytime, blasting. Everyone's scared. Kim's wedging a chair underneath her doorknob in case Lalo tries to get in. I think he'd probably find another way to get in. that might not be enough. Jimmy thanks God that he's dead, which it is of note that even though they promised to not keep secrets from one another, Kim does not tell him what she knows about Lalo that she learned from Mike. So something of note there. And even Guss is shook by this. We see Guss, and this is how I read this scene, because obviously Guss would never verbalize something like this. But the scene in El Pollo Loco, you know, he places his pencil on the table, he gets up, he looks at himself in the mirror, makes sure he's put together well, checks his ankle gun, adjusts these hats on his way out to the floor, works the register, somebody drops a pan, he jumps. It's very clear to me that what we're meant to take from this is that Guss is so shook as well over the potential return of Lalo that even he has to kind of he gets extra anal and extra particular about everything. And he seems hesitant to even go out on the floor of his own restaurant because he's worried about whether or not Lalo's going to pop up. So they do a great job, I think, of laying out the potential and the stakes for a Lalo return and just how bad it could be by showing all of the protagonists. I think it might be a stretch to call Guss a protagonist, but showing all of these main characters all very upset and very scared about the idea of Lalo returning. So building up some good tension for what I think is going to be probably a pretty explosive final 2 episodes before we take the mid-season break. As far as Lalo goes, continuing on with this, they're right to be worried here. We see Lalo at the end of this episode, and I like how they are showing that Lalo is playing the long game. Like, Lalo's not just gonna pop up in New Mexico and start asking questions and being noisy and looking around for someone to shoot. He knows how to do this the smart way. He knows that they know he's coming for them. So he's playing the long game, and I kind of appreciate that. Like, this entire episode, it didn't focus on this, but as far as the Lalo storyline goes, which we only saw him at the end, but as far as this goes, he's only getting a very small piece of what he needs in order to get what he wants. And the episode largely focuses on that, not in duration, as in like this is most of the episode, but your opening sequence and your closing sequence. And we always see the opening sequence, like, what is going on here? How is this going to tie into the rest of the storyline? We get our tie-in at the end, and it's very clear that Lalo is using this German woman, this wife of Werner, however you want to say it, to get just a little bit of information. It's so interesting that they put so much emphasis on this aspect of the episode when really Lalo only gets so little from it. So let's talk about that scene. So the beginning is the opening of the beginning is the opening. It's too early in the morning for me. The beginning shows the creation of like a plaque with like a ruler in it. And we see a message on it written in German. We find out later at the end that it is from Werner's construction group. So if you remember Werner, he's the guy that Guss hired to work on the underground meth lab beneath the laundromat that we know from Breaking Bad. He got in a whole thing where he wanted to go back to see his wife, the woman that we meet in this episode. And I think if I remember correctly, he snuck out of the place that they were supposed to sleep in or whatever to go meet his wife, or I guess maybe to go fly back to Germany because he had asked to I think he said to get a week with her or something like that. And Mike shot it down saying, you got to finish the job. And he snuck out to try to go to go fly back to meet his wife. And he got caught. Mike was ordered to kill him. He didn't want to do it. He didn't deal with it very well. He didn't deal with having to do it very well. And he told the guys on the construction crew that it was exactly what the wife relays to Lalo in this episode, that it was an issue with the excavation, like it caved in on him or whatever. And now I wonder too, a quick little side note, I wonder what they did with the crew. Like, the crew is sent back. Well, I don't wonder what they did with the crew, but I wonder about the authenticity of the plaque, because I don't know if the crew actually made him this plaque. I think, if I remember correctly, Mike sent them all home and impressed upon them the importance of not talking about what they were working on. But then this plaque was made, and was this plaque made solely as a cover-up for this whole story about this guy, about Werner being killed in this cave-in? And then if you give this plaque, it kind of like looks like, okay, well, they didn't come to the funeral. They didn't come to, she says they didn't come to the funeral, which we learn in this episode, but we know that Mike sent them away, so they couldn't come to the funeral. But did Guss have this plaque made? And I think this is what we're supposed to be taking from it. Did Guss have this plaque made to essentially serve as a cover-up for why they weren't at the funeral? But then he gives himself away. Well, doesn't necessarily give himself away just yet, but he gives Lalo a clue by there being like a stamp or a sticker on the bottom of this plaque for the place that made it. Which, if you know anything about Guss, you're going to know he's going to have some sort of affiliation with this place that made it. He's going to use the tools that he has in front of him to get this job done. So it's probably like a business that he owns or something that he launders money through, or whatever the case may be. So we focus on this ruler and this plaque at the beginning, and then we have this one scene with Lalo and this woman at the end. But there's so much that you can take away from this, and so much that can be gained by Lalo just from seeing this sticker on the bottom of this plaque, that were it not for her explaining to him about the significance of that phrase to Lalo, he wouldn't even have known to look on the bottom of that plaque. So it's just all these little things that the show doesn't hold your hand and walk you through, and it allows you to make these connections. And that's what I love about this show. That this simple idea of like, hey, let me have this plaque made to cover up the fact that I'm sending these workers off, is gonna be ultimately just a piece in what's gonna lead Lalo to Guss. And I think it's just brilliant how they write this show, and they leave us to do so much work. And because I'm sitting here thinking like, what was this? Like trying to like put all this back together again. And I love that they're making us work. Like, there's so much that's said, that's written in between the lines and that is not said, that I think adds to this show so much, and that's what makes it so great. So we also see Howard figure out that Jimmy is behind all these pranks against him once Cliff mentions that he was meeting with Kim, and he decides to pose as a Mr. Ward, how creative, and have a fight at a boxing gym with Jimmy to kind of hash everything out. But I think that the fight was kind of like a twofold kind of strategy. I think, one, Howard actually did want to fight legally to kind of like iron out their differences and get revenge, I think, to a degree, for everything that Jimmy has done against him. But also, I think it was like a side plot here for Howard, was like, hey, if I walk away from this not feeling comfortable that we've ended this beef, I got this private investigator out here who can follow Saul, whatever, who can follow him. And I think the best way to be able to have a private investigator follow somebody is to know where that person's going to be at for sure. So he knew that he would be bringing Saul to this boxing gym, so he could tell the private investigator, be at this boxing gym. Saul is going to be at this gym. So if I need you to follow him, you can follow him from there, as opposed to just like wait outside his house or hope to find him at some, wherever. It's easier to give a location if you know that person is going to be at that location because you invited them there, as opposed to just like, hey, find this guy and follow him. So I think it was like a twofold strategy from Howard. I'm wondering what's going to happen with this PI, just because the PI following Saul and Kim, we already know Mike's got people watching them. Is this PI gonna end up dead? And now Howard's gonna be looking like, what have I gotten myself into? I thought I was just having a PI follow a guy who I got some beef with just to see what's going on, and now he's dead. What the fuck? Like, I feel like that's what's gonna happen, is that Mike's people are gonna kill this PI, not knowing who he is or thinking that he's working for Lalo. And boy, again, another thing this show does, like I said, you look at a simple boxing scene, but look at what all I was able to take away from it. The PI, the potential for this PI to be killed because he's confused for being one of Lalo's people. Like, all of this you could take away from this show, and they don't put any of that on the screen. Like, that's all what I'm gleaning from it based on information from previous episodes. That's why the writing on the show is so brilliant. There's an interesting moment at the laundromat with Guss. He must be anticipating having a meeting with Lalo, or I don't want to say a meeting because that makes it sound like it's like it's something he purposely shows up to, but having a run-in, we'll say it that way, with Lalo in the meth lab of the under the laundromat, because he does a weird thing where, like, he turns on these lights, and then you can see by the way he's walking, he's counting his paces up until he gets to the wheel of this truck, and he puts his ankle gun in the wheel. I don't know what that, a lot of stuff I can kind of piece together here. I can't figure out what his plan is there, because it's working under the assumption that he's going to need that gun in the dark. And I'm wondering what he's anticipating to make him think he's going to need that gun in the dark, or blindfolded. But I'm assuming in the dark. Like, those lights are going to be off. The top's going to be down on that place. So it's going to be completely pitch black in there. And he's going to have to find that gun. Finding that gun, I don't know how that helps him, unless, again, since he counted paces from the cord that he used to turn on the lights to that truck wheel, maybe he can be in a position where if he's got Lalo down there and it's dark, Lalo's obviously going to have no idea what's going on. But Guss, if he's at that tractor, he can get his gun from under that tire and then count paces to the lights, turn the lights on, and boom, got Lalo dead to rights. Maybe that's the plan. I'm gonna look like a fucking prophet if this thing if the PI gets killed and Guss executes this plan, counting the paces from the truck wheel to the lights, to turn on the lights so he can shoot at Lalo. Like, if that if that plays out, I'm gonna look like a fucking Notre Damus. What's Kim gonna do with this information that she has about this judge that's working on the Sandpiper case, this Casimiro guy, Rand Casimiro? I don't know what's gonna happen with that. I truly don't have a guess for this one, but I do love the fact that the woman Viola that she met with, I love the look of guilt on Kim's face, and we all know Rhea Seehorn is the shit. Like, I love the look of, like, guilt on her face while she's being praised for all the good work she's been doing with her nonprofit by this Viola chick, knowing that she's up to some dirty shit involving this judge. I don't know what she's gonna do, but probably another part of her Howard plan. She does say at some point to Jimmy, you know, you're worried because you know what's next, which to me reads as in they're escalating this plan against Howard. So maybe it has something to do with this judge and ruining the Sandpiper case, which would be, wow. That's some hardcore shit, man. Like, they're really going hard after him. I'm telling you, man, that's now 3 things I could potentially be right on. I said I didn't have a theory, but I mean, that's a very thin theory, but it's a theory nonetheless. So we're going to wrap up with a couple of thoughts here. I love the "I'm Saul Goodman and I fight for you" line that Kim just came up with off the top of her head. Brilliant. I thought the garage door cam was cool. Like, when the woman pulls into her garage and Mike is in the trunk, they have this camera that's, like, I guess, attached to the automatic garage door. That was really cool. And I liked the Mike Tyson's punch out, like, behind the fucking gloves camera that they had during the boxing match. I just like looking for whatever cool camera shit they're gonna do in every episode at this point. It seems like it's almost like a fan service kind of thing. Like, hey, what fancy camera thing are we gonna do this week to give something to the dedicated fans who are in it for the weird cameras. Let's see. I understand being, like, tense and nervous, but, like, why would Guss, I assume, be trying to calm himself down by scrubbing his shower with a toothbrush? Like, like I said, he's so particular about everything, and I think that's an example of what it's like to be a tense Guss. Because if you're, like I said, we had the pencil placement earlier, the hat adjustment, the clothes adjustment, which he always does the clothes adjustment. He often does the pencil thing too. But I think these are all examples just to show how neurotic he is. And I guess for a guy who's nervous and has nervous energy, scrubbing, he can't really get in between those cracks in the shower tile with anything worse than a toothbrush. So I guess it kind of makes sense he would go there, but weird. But yeah, so I think this episode was kind of like a little bit of a slowdown, but I love how it gave us so much to work with for what these last 2 episodes before the break could be like. I've got now three theories out there, so I'm glad this episode gave me that. And again, the show continues to be amazingly written and incredibly captivating to watch, even when very little happens. Because even though they might give you very little on the screen, they've given you so much over the course of the show that they don't have to give you a lot to get a point across, as long as you are someone who has been paying attention this whole time. So this is a show that rewards its viewers who pay attention, and I love and respect that. So until next week, peace.